Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Real Beans, the podcast where we pair coffee with cinema. Today, we will be discussing Steven Spielberg's classic adventure film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and pairing it with a coffee from Peru. I'm very excited to introduce my guests for today's episode, the hosts of the Cinescare Podcast, Joe Janz and Matt Speak. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
It's great to be
thank
here.
you for joining me today.
Great to be referred to as a host.
Oh, he's the... Matt's the host?
Yes. No, we're both hosts.
We're both hosts. There's other people on the show that aren't hosts that seem to think that they're hosts, and I'm sure they'll be listening to this particular broadcast. So
Yeah,
Right.
we're the hosts. Yeah.
They haven't graduated to that. They almost did, but then they took a 14-month break from the show and went back to square one after that.
Well, yeah, so why don't you go ahead and just tell me a little bit about Cinescare, what it is, and what brought it about?
Well, I can tell you, during COVID, I used to listen to a podcast called Shockwaves. It was a horror podcast with 4 hosts who were really great. And not because of COVID, but at that time there was a scandal with one of them, and so basically the whole show just shut down. And I thought, oh no, because I loved listening to them, and they got ideas for horror movies. And I thought, I watch horror movies all the time. I should get somebody together and start our own podcast. We're all sitting around doing nothing anyway at this time. So I called Joe and I said, hey, Joe, I have an idea. Would you like to do a horror podcast? And he immediately answered yes. Immediately. And
you just phrased that as if it were a question. It was more of a command. It was, hey, Joe, we're going to do a podcast.
Yeah, a horror movie podcast.
I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And I said,
I was told we were doing one.
Yeah. So we're going to do a podcast. It's going to be a horror podcast. And he was like, yep. All right. And then I said, I don't really know what to call it. And he said, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. If I did have a horror podcast, I would call it Cinescare. And so that I was like, that's perfect. And that was how it all started. And it really was like a 2-second conversation. And within a couple weeks, I don't even know how long it was, we were up and running. And now it's evolved into what it is, which is, we have Mark. It's a lot more, there's a lot more funny things happening and stuff like that. So, and now we have Catherine, of course, who
Yeah, Catherine has been on our podcast before.
Yeah. And so she's become a great part. It's I'd always thought we needed to have a female on the show just to balance out the male voices or whatever. And so she's been a great part of it.
Yeah. Because of her, I started listening to Cinescare and got very interested in all the horror movies you all discuss. It was kind of similar with me with this podcast, where I was just sort of sitting around going, I would like to start this and talk about it. I always enjoy talking about movies with my friends, and I like to introduce people to coffee. So I figured the two passions I had at that moment were to bring it together and to discuss both and see if I could pair as if we were pairing wine with food. And so I thought, great. And I just hit my year mark. So I'm like, okay, perfect. We're starting to roll on this. And that's why I'm very grateful to have some guests come on the show to discuss. And it was your idea to do Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I had never seen this film before. And of course, people were like, what? You've never seen this movie before? And it's been on my list of ever-growing movies that I probably should have seen many years ago that I just now getting around to seeing. And then I started sitting back thinking, okay, I really want to see this movie because I know all about it. And it's been in the culture for so long with Harrison Ford, especially now that he's big again on TV. I thought this would be an appropriate time to do this. And then I do like a Peruvian coffee. And because this starts off his adventure in Peru, I thought this was going to be a perfect combination together. And I know Joe has the K-Cup version of this. We have the fresh roasted coffee LLC and the Peru coffee, which is a medium roast. Joe, what have you thought about this coffee so far? It's a
hand to God, I am on my third cup of it today. I had 2 for breakfast and needed a refresher for this show. I quite like it. It is not bitter in the least. Matt full knows that I like my coffee like I like my women, ground up and in the freezer. But K-cups wherever I can. And this is quite good. This is delicious. I don't like I said, there's no bitterness. It's very smooth, very aromatic, I will say. So yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, when I was brewing it, I started reading some of the descriptions of this, and the bag says warm cinnamon, caramel, and orange notes. And as I was smelling inside the bag, the first scent, it kind of reminded me of cinnamon burning in a candle, or the hot tamale candies, that type of burnt cinnamon, reminiscing of that. But then when I'm drinking it, as you say, it's a very smooth cup, and I'm very pleased with it because this company I've never heard of before until I saw it on Amazon. And for some reason, I had this thought it was one of the budgetary brands that they show on Amazon is just like, this is just some regular coffee that we're just pulling and selling and no care in it. But I was pleasantly surprised to discover that this has been around for a while, and they do make it affordable for people. And as coffee continues to get more expensive and more expensive, it's nice to have a company to try to keep things and maintain very accessible for it so that anyone can have it. And it tastes good. So I was very glad for that.
Yeah, considering I had to buy a 24 pack of it, and I'm glad it was delicious because I'm going to be drinking it for a while.
Exactly, and that's always the crapshoot with coffee, especially if you don't know the brand or aren't familiar with it, and you decide to throw down $20 for something to taste it. And I went to a coffee festival yesterday, and oh boy, was I jittery by the hour and a half mark because there was so much coffee to taste. But it was like they were selling these large bags of coffee, and I'm going, well, I'm not really sure if I really want to spend it. But there was one place that actually had like samples of coffee to buy, so I was like, this is perfect to test out. So that way, if I like you or not, then I'll go back and buy your coffee.
Where was this coffee festival?
This was at the Music Box at the Reef, downtown LA. Yeah, it was a lot of independent coffee shops, and I used to go to coffee festivals all the time when I lived in New York City, especially the ones that were more geared towards the independent mom and pop type coffee places as opposed to the big corporations, which I'm more interested in because they usually taste a little bit better and they have more care and when it goes into the making and the roasting of the beans. So those of you in Los Angeles who know coffee festivals, this was the LA Coffee Fest, and I highly recommend it. It was quite fun.
Yeah, a couple of friends of ours own a coffee shop here in Burbank called The Ugly Mug. And we go there. We haven't actually been there for a bit, but yeah, they started it, I think 2019, 2018, something like that. And it's been going on strong. In fact, Cinescare, we did a little cross promotion with them. They created a Cinescare drink for Halloween. And so we had a couple years there where we had our own drink.
Nice. Yeah, I like the Ugly Mug when I go to, because I work in Burbank.
Oh, yeah.
So I always stop off there. It's a really nice place, cozy, and kind of what I remember from living in the Midwest. Had that same kind of cute vibe, but also like very relaxed and chill, and you could get anything imaginable in that coffee shop.
Yep.
So shout out to the Ugly Mug Coffee Shop.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's jump into what we're all here for, and that's Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this film, as I said before, this was my first time seeing it. So my first impressions of this it was quite good. And it was a full house of people I got to see it in the 35 millimeter print because this was at the new Beverly Cinema, Quentin Tarantino's movie house. And I was really surprised and to see all the people there, because I haven't been to a full house in a movie theater in quite a long time, and so that the the atmosphere was huge,
Yeah.
and it made the film even much higher than I would have expected had I just watched it at home.
When
And
was it that you saw it there?
this was about 2 weeks ago. It was a
Oh,
matinee
okay.
that they did for the what they call the kiddie matinee. Yeah, I just loved it. I thought it had a lot going for it in terms of just an action adventure film. And I'm not usually one to go see action adventure films very often. So, but this, because there's so much to it, and of course it's Steven Spielberg and George Lucas
You're
in the
right.
helm of it, you know you're in for a good time.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater when I was in 6th grade, and it kind of became like part of my personality for quite a while. The whole idea. I was looking into being an archaeologist. I mean, like, I totally got
Trying
in.
out whips,
Yeah, I was trying
trying
out
on
whips.
fedoras left and
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
it was crazy. But I absolutely loved this movie and all three of them. Yeah, the second one I didn't like as much as the first and the third, but especially Raiders of the Lost Ark is just a masterpiece. It's just of action adventure. It is absolutely, in my opinion, a masterpiece.
I can't really remember it. This came out when I was 8. I mean, I can't remember a time in my life barely without ever seeing it before. And I can't
Mm-hmm.
even fathom the amount of times I've rewatched it since then. It was one of those things that I know when before Betamax or VHS had come out, this had probably been on HBO, I'm sure, some free weekend, because my family, we never paid for premium channels. But when I
Yeah.
found out that it was on, Raiders of the Lost Ark was on HBO for a free weekend, that's probably all I did was watch that movie again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had no aspirations of being an archaeologist. I wanted to be an architect like Mr. Brady, but still, it was. This was, a large part of my childhood, and I agree with Matt that, the second movie has its parts that I enjoy quite a bit. It's still a real toss-up for me of if I was on a deserted island, if I would prefer Raiders of the Lost Ark or The Last Crusade, which one I would pick. The answer kind of changes by the day. But and then that's it. It's a perfect trilogy. There are no other movies other than those three, because
Mm-hmm.
anything other than those three would be a bad idea. So
Yeah.
yeah, I still find it. I was shocked when I found out, Ben, that you hadn't seen this,
Yeah.
just because it's been part of my life for so long. I just assumed that everybody has, and everybody's seen Star Wars, and everybody's seen, all the movies that I just assume that I grew up with. Um,
Right.
I know for a fact both of my kids have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark at least once, but that's because
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessive and force them to. Um, but I just, it's one of those things as a parent growing up, you want to make sure your kids are raised correctly. And I think this is something that, like, it's been described as a perfect movie. I think it's at least pretty darn close. And I think it's one of those things that literally everybody should watch at least once.
Definitely.
Yeah, I remember as a kid we had the trilogy in the box set VHS, but we
Mm-hmm.
also had the Star Wars in the VHS trilogy box set as well. And I think I watched that well before really getting into movies. So I had already seen Star Wars, and I think because I wasn't so interested in the action adventure genre at that time, I kind of just like, oh, it's not a movie I'm interested in, so I'm just not going to think about it. But I do remember when I think The Last Crusade came out in the theaters. That was probably the first one in my that I recall uh, being on TV, being advertised, and of course Sean Connery is in that one, so he was a big star, and so is Harrison Ford. Um, but yeah, it was interesting that it's taken me this long. But as I was mentioning a little earlier, that I have like a list of all these movies that have been just ruminating on this list of mine of like, I need to really get to this one. I need to really get to this one. And Raiders of the Lost Ark had been towards the top of that list because I do love Steven Spielberg as a director. I've seen most of his other work. So this was his lonely one that I've sort of just been bypassing. And I just found it interesting that it took me so long to get to it.
Yeah.
I love the tremendous supporting cast that's in this that have gone on to do other things. Now, I know it's been stated that, Harrison Ford is in 2 huge franchises. To be in Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars, that is a huge accomplishment. However, it pales in comparison to being in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, and then, of course, the Batman movie, the original, the Tim Burton, which there's only one person that I'm aware of that has transversed all 3 of them, and that's William Hootkins, who, as you guys may know, as Porkins from Star Wars. And then, of course, he was one of the FBI agents at the very beginning. And then he also played Commander Eckhart in Tim Burton's Batman. So, I mean, that's where the real medal goes, is to somebody who's been in Batman, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Star Wars with like a named character. Yeah, that's an achievement. And he was also in Flash Gordon, too, but I don't know how big of a deal that is to anybody.
Oh, boy.
And then, of course, Alfred Molino, who plays Sapito, the Judas of the bunch, goes on to play Doc Ock and numerous other fantastic roles. But
Boogie Nights, forget about it.
Yeah, Sapito got what he deserved. You don't portray Indiana Jones.
I had seen that opening sequence, or bits of it, because they would show it on various documentaries or any type of clip show when they would discuss Steven Spielberg. So I kind of knew about that sequence, but didn't really know what led up to it and what happened afterwards. So the tension is quite high in that sequence. And I have arachnophobia, so the spider sequences kind of made me creepy crawl. But also the suspense that builds up to the moment that he switches the bag of sand for the idol. And then you think, oh, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, trapdoor goes down, and that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yep.
And, when Sapito asks him to throw the idol and then drops the whip and leaves, the very next thing he does, in my opinion, is the complete culmination of who Indiana Jones is. So he takes the risk and he jumps, and he manages to grab onto that root that's pulling out of the ground. And the minute he grasps firmly onto it, you see the close-up on his face. He's got this big, huge smile, a sigh of relief, and then all of a sudden it gives way. And that becomes the oh shit moment. And that brief turn of events, that 3 seconds, that is my opinion of, that culminates Indiana Jones as a person.
Yep.
Absolutely. You've got a lot of comedic moments with that look of like, everything's good. And then, oh shit.
Right.
And
yeah.
On top of that, you also see in the background or in the foreground, the wall is coming down, about ready to lock him in so he can't escape. On top of him, like, oh, is he going to make it out of the pit, or is he going to fall completely into the pit? How is that going to go? And naturally, of course, he does make it out, as only Indiana Jones could possibly do, I would say.
Skin of his teeth.
Yes. And we have many moments of that throughout the film.
Yeah. Watching this again, it's also very refreshing to see just all the practical action that's happening. There's obviously, this came out in 81, 81. And so they weren't, they didn't have computer effects and all of that, but everything was practical or camera trickery. It was done, pretty much in camera. And so it just reminds you how powerful that is to have action be grounded. And so many movies, all these Marvel movies and everything else, are done in front of a green screen. They were shot in any kind of location. They're not grounded in any kind of reality. You can tell the background is fake. The acting was obviously done on a green screen. Lighting is done in the most general way possible so that they don't have trouble matching in post. And it has no character to it, but the action in this movie is grounded in reality. It's shot either on sets or on location, and that just the power of that is just unmistakable when it's actually done in camera and actually done by actors or stunt people. There's no way to fake that, and he did it so well at Jaws and this and everything. It just had never been done with this kind of polish and this believability.
Right, and the care that went into it, and that Steven Spielberg's love for movies really shines in all of his films that he directs, and especially this one, where I know that they wanted to do this like a TV serial, where each week, and you can totally see how it does feel that way, where you could say, oh, the Peru scene is week one, and then there's the scene with Mary, and that's another one, and then there's on and on. I'm glad they didn't break it up that way, because it's a really good film from beginning to end, but I totally see where they wanted to go with something like that, where it would have worked, and I think that really adds to the enjoyment and the thrill of the film as you're watching it.
Yeah. Matt, to your point, with the in-camera effects or the non-digital effects, in doing some research for this podcast, I never realized before, but even at the ending scene, not ending, close to ending, after the Ark of the Covenant's been opened, I'm assuming there's no spoilers, like everybody's seen this.
I would imagine, okay. Right?
Spoiler alert.
It was 1981. Yeah, spoiler alert. So when they open the Ark of the Covenant, we have those angels, demons, beasts, whatever they are, floating around. I found out those were done practically in a pool. They were mannequins with like flowing robes and stuff on them. They had them, they were maneuvering them through the water to give them that angelic look, and they filmed it in slow motion with a fuzzy type lens to get that effect. And today it would just be all CGI, but that's a tremendous solution to that problem, and it's still the imagery today. It's amazing. Yeah. And it's the only way you could make that cooler is if you made wax heads of your evil villains and you had them melt over time in slow motion. Yeah. That's just an amazing effect. So
yeah, it is. The practical face melting effect is just, it
scared the daylights out of me as a kid. Yeah, it
scared me to death as a kid, and it still works. Now it's not too real, obviously, but I mean, neither is, if it was done by CG, it wouldn't look real either, Yeah. So I much prefer practical, fakery than a digital fakery any day. And it all works so well. I did not know that about the swimming pool thing. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Plus, could you imagine being on set when the day, all right, we've got these wax heads with skulls inside of them, and we're going to blowtorch them with all these heat lamps and stuff, and being able to watch that progress over screen, over time. And I mean, that would have just been awesome to watch.
Yeah.
And to your point with the whole CGI effects, I definitely could see how poor it would have looked. And that was the same with like the original Star Wars, where the practical effects are so good that you don't really sit there and think, these look fake. You actually feel like you're there. And going back to the whole melting of the face, at least it's fast. So it's not like it's a complete slow motion of the face. So at least it doesn't look too fake when the event happens, which I appreciate.
Before Spielberg, the practical effects were, the Ray Harryhausen stop motion movies, Sinbad, and all of those kinds of things, and those did look fake. Like when I was a kid, I was like, Clash of the Titans or whatever. They look pretty fake.
The Argonauts,
yeah. And Spielberg found ways to avoid doing it that way. Now, I can look back and have an appreciation for those old stop motion techniques, but it did look fake, and Spielberg just had this way of bringing the action and making it not look fake, and have it be grounded in reality as well. So,
and have it
What's
work for the
tremendous
story.
editing. The editing on that is
right.
spectacular because it's not a steady shot of the head melting from beginning to end. They know when to cut.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my God, did I just see what I saw? And then by the time that thought is processed in your head, you're back watching it, a fraction of a second later. And it's enough to like, oh my God, I didn't see quite enough of that. I want to see more. But I can imagine in my head just how gross that would be in person,
Yeah.
Especially because you're going back and forth between all the Nazis melting, and then you shoot back to Indiana Jones and Marion tied up, and he's like, "Don't look,
Yeah.
don't look, don't look," and you're
Yeah.
just like, you don't really see what's happening behind them, just lights flashing and the flying demons.
Ethereal demons. Yeah.
And
Right.
exactly, you're right with just sitting there and imagining, not showing things. It worked well with even though they didn't want it that way, but with Jaws, not showing anything for the
Right.
longest time was much scarier than
Yeah.
had they seen the shark at the beginning. It's very Hitchcockian too, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Before we
found
get
that
off, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, the Hitchcockian thing, I found that to be prevalent throughout, and that's that love of movies again. But the whole date sequence with the monkey and
Right.
Harrison
Oh,
picking up
yeah.
the date, and you're like, oh gosh, he's going to eat that date. Is anyone going to stop him before he eats that date? And you get so close to it, and then just the buildup of it was brilliant, I thought.
Yeah.
Speaking of Spielberg and editing, again, research that I just did today that I never knew. After numerous watches of this, I, along with millions of other people, have noticed there's a scene where Indiana Jones has a rocket launcher on his shoulder as the Nazis are carrying it away to its, final place before they open it. And he threatens to blow up the Ark. And Belloq is sort of calling his bluff, saying, go ahead and do it. And after you've watched it enough times, you will see on the close-up of Belloq's face, there is a fly that buzzes around.
Yeah.
And lands on his lip, and then you don't see it. And everyone has assumed that he swallowed it. So what I have read today is that, contrary to popular belief, he did not swallow it. Freeman explained in an interview years later that the fly flew off about the instant that he uttered the word bad. But Steven Spielberg noticed it, and he thought it'd be funny if he cut it out a few frames earlier so that everyone would think he actually ate the bug when in reality he didn't. So that's tremendous. That if this is true, I think that's a spectacular little, trick Spielberg did.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because I didn't notice that the first time on the big screen, that sequence, but when I rewatched it, I noticed that. And then I happened to, when I was doing some research on this, I saw a lot of people commenting about that as well. And I thought, that's fascinating. I like his idea and his sense of humor, of course.
Yeah.
There was one issue I had, or question that I had forever about this, and doing research for this led me to know something I didn't know before. And one question I had was, how on earth, because when Indy's on the boat and they take the Ark and Marion onto the sub, and then Indy swims over there and gets on the sub, I'm always thinking, well, how did he survive the sub going under? And so in the research today, they actually had a scene that they were shooting. You can find it on YouTube, where he's holding on to the periscope, and the boat, the sub, the U-boat, is floating along with the periscope up, and he's holding on to it. And it's kind of a goofy shot. I can totally see why they didn't keep it. But then I also read that U-boats did not, they only submerged when enemy were near. They could only stay submerged at a max of 2 hours before they needed to come back up and recharge their battery. So that now I'm relieved. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was thinking, I always thought to myself, now, how is that sub going to stay up above water all the way to where they need to go? But apparently that's what U-boats did. If there were no enemy around, they stayed above water to preserve, all the things they needed to be underwater. So
Neat. Yeah, that was a moment where I thought, where did Indy go? And then I just,
right.
because my suspension of disbelief can tolerate quite a lot, I was like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. He's just going to appear anyway. No
Well,
matter
when you've
what
seen
happens,
it 100 times like me and Joe, those little things they start to nag on you after about 10 times. You're like, how did he make it through the U-boat? But I was today years old when I found out that actually that would have been perfectly practical. And if you want to check out on YouTube the scene of the shot they did where he's holding onto the periscope, it's pretty goofy looking.
I also found out that, the scene when Marcus Brody comes to his house after talking with the government agents, we see Indiana Jones dressed in like a smoking jacket.
Yeah.
Almost type thing, like a robe. And I found out that originally he was supposed to have been entertaining a lady right before Brody came in, which was supported by when he was originally supposed to be a ladies' man. He was supposed to be a playboy. And it shows that in the classroom scene where that girl has "love you" written on her eyelids. And it was a nod to that. And so that's why he also had champagne uncorked and ready to go right in there after he heard the good news from Brody. But they decided to cut all that because after seeing who he was, they didn't want him to be a ladies' man. And it would help strengthen his relationship with Marion, being more like a one-woman guy type of thing. So again,
although Marion does, she goes along with his desire for much younger women. The lines that they say in that bar, "I was a child, it was wrong, and you knew it." And then he says, "You knew what you were doing."
Yeah.
kind of creepy, Indy.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to assume that she was maybe exaggerating a little bit. Maybe she was 18. Well, I don't know.
19, 20, a child compared to what she is now.
I guess so.
Exactly.
I was a child.
Probably, yeah.
But then it was wrong and you knew it. Indy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they did cut out the part of him being a ladies' man, because it would have been easy for this character to devolve into kind of a 007 sort of type. And I like that he's not that he's more of a I don't know but he's more of a down and dirty. He's, kind of guy, and not so much of the James Bond style, where he's on him, has a martini in hand or whatever. Yeah.
That's actually what the intention was initially with Spielberg and Lucas, is they were looking to create a 007 film.
Yeah.
And it sort of evolved into this.
Into that, yeah.
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 I also like the fact that you have two type of characters with Indiana Jones. You have the bookish, meek professor who's sort of entranced by all the ladies, love him, and you see that in the classroom scene. Then all of a sudden he goes full-blown adventure action hero. So I like the sort of back and forth between the two characters to show that, we all kind of have a little bit of adventure in us when we get our chance to do so, I think.
Yeah. Going back to the scene in Indy's house with Marcus, that was all done. I believe it was all one shot, and just camera movement and blocking, and I believe it was all one shot, that scene, or two maybe. I can't remember. Also, I have another thing. The flight that he took to Nepal to see Marion, I looked it up. That flight would have, because I was thinking to myself, wow, this time there were a lot of things I was thinking this time I hadn't thought before. I was like, commercial flights back in the 1930s are probably not that common, and I looked it up, and that they did have commercial flights, but they were only for the super wealthy, and that flight that he took would have cost about $20,000 in today's money. to take that
back
flight.
then it cost $2,000. Because when Marcus comes to him initially to let him know that the government's here to talk to him, he says, I just need $2,000 for a ticket to Marrakesh. And he tries basically bartering the pieces that he had found in the museum. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sure we'll give you this, Speaking of once he's found Marion, another thing I discovered again today, I'm learning so much about this film that I've appreciated for God knows how many decades. The scene where Indiana Jones shoots the swordsman in the town square. Famous scene. I've known that what I had heard originally was that Indiana Jones was just tired because they were shooting all day, and he went up to Lucas and Spielberg and just said, hey, how about if I just shoot him? And they're like, well, go ahead and try it. And so he did it, and they all laughed, and they thought it was great, and they went home. This is partially true. There is apparently more to the story, which is everyone on the set had food poisoning that day, including Harrison Ford. Everyone, I should say, except Steven Spielberg, who was on the SpaghettiOs diet. He had shipped it because he was cautious about what he was going to have to eat over there, and he decided to have shipped over cases of SpaghettiOs, and that's what he ate for most meals. So because he didn't have the fish tonight on the plane, he was the only one who had a decent stomach and was able to keep shooting and keep rolling. So he was the one that made the call despite everyone else's discomfort. And they shot it and they were done for the day. So
is SpaghettiOs Chef Boyardee?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't he do the what was it? The ravioli. The ravioli is way better than SpaghettiOs.
I don't know. This says bottles of water and canned SpaghettiOs.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, because the filming of this, a lot of it took place in Tunisia in Africa.
Right.
So I can imagine, especially in 1981, you don't want to drink the water, don't want to have any lettuce or anything like that. So I would have been on the spaghetti diet, I think.
Yeah, I would have brought ravioli. I would have brought the Chef Boyardee ravioli. That would have been my choice.
I also remember as a kid, I had seen like a behind the scenes thing. It was very hard to find any of this stuff nowadays, but I remember seeing this featurette on just the scene with the Nazi car chase where he's got the Ark of the Covenant in the back of the transport, and how he was the one, Harrison Ford actually did the stunt where he's on the front of the truck, crawls underneath it, and then hooks his whip, or at least I think that's what it was, and then gets drugged behind it and eventually crawls back on. He did that stunt entirely on his own with no stunt doubles. And what they had done to make it quote unquote easier, this extremely difficult stunt, they dug a trench down the middle of the road so that even if there was an accident, he could let go and he wouldn't be hit with any of the undercarriage of the vehicle. And so they did it. And at the end of the day, he was all cut up and I think he bruised some ribs or something. But he did the shot. He did it all on his own. And his quote was, if it was really that dangerous, they would have shot more of the movie first.
Yeah.
That's true.
Funny.
I know that whole chase sequence is, it's quite the...
Yeah. And they go through a lot of terrain in that chase sequence too. There's a lot, in fact, there, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a giant cliff out of nowhere that goes, I don't even know how far down, and then it's gone after that.
Well, and it's replicated too again in Last Crusade, where he's got the motorcycle with the sidecar. I mean, it's very formulaic, but I don't care. I'd like to see that 1,000 more times with Indiana's dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so much fun just because I mean, a lot of it's kind of absurd in the way because there's like all of a sudden you have like a multitude of people just climbing out of the back. It just seems like never ending Nazis coming around to try to stop Indiana Jones.
Just random Nazis.
The way it's filmed and shot is just so like everything's happening all at once. So you don't have a moment to really breathe.
Right. Yeah.
And then, of course, one of my favorite parts in any kind of film is when they use what is called the Wilhelm scream, when one of the
Oh, of
Nazis is
course.
thrown out and you have the
Yep.
scream that everyone
Yep.
notices and hears. And of course, the entire movie theater broke out laughing hysterically
sure.
when that moment happened.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's the best.
There were parts that as a kid, I just remember watching this on VHS. I probably wore out the parts of the tape because I'd watched it over and over again. One, of course, was when Indy's on the boat with Marion and she's trying to see what she looks like in the dress in the mirror, and she flips it over and hits Indy in the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
He screams. You hear it from outside of the boat. Such a great shot. I must have watched that 100 times when I was a kid. But then the fight scene with the larger than life Nazi outside the plane, the old fashioned boxing scene. Oh my God, it's tremendous. And what I'm realizing now is that actor, oh crap, I lost it. Oh, here it is. Renowned British wrestler Pat Roach dies twice in the film. Once as a giant Sherpa at Marion's bar, and he's the same guy that gets chewed up by the plane's propeller.
Oh wow, that's hilarious.
I had no idea. But again, the scene where Indiana doesn't get up for the last time because he can see the propeller encroaching on him, and guy turns around and it's cut beautifully. You don't need to see anything else other than the blood splatter on the wing of the plane. It's magic. Yeah.
Just perfect, and especially great way to just less is more, as I always prefer.
Right.
Where you don't have to, unless it's specifically required or needed. It's like that was just the fact that we know what happened.
Right.
We don't have to see it happening. It probably would have been really gruesome and wouldn't have been a PG rated movie at the time.
True. Yeah. It wouldn't have been that kind of movie. Yeah.
I will say that from my research, I found out that the Ark of the Covenant, the design is biblically accurate. So like whoever actually came up with the design, they did their research all the way down to the two angels with their wings along the top. I mean, all this is described in the Bible, and they did a great job. I know there's one discrepancy, like the rods that they slide through to actually carry the ark are supposed to be wrapped in gold. I think it's like a birchwood or something that they use, but it's supposed to be wrapped in gold. But other than that, it was a tremendous prop, and it's so iconic, and it's something to this day. You can see that, anywhere, and you're like, oh, that's from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, the authenticity of what they bring, especially when they're in the tomb where they find the ark and everything that's under there. The cinematography and the production design are just so spectacular.
Oh yeah, the cinematography is it's fantastic, and it's everything. If you look, and this is true of a lot of Spielberg's films, everything's in focus. He doesn't use, unless it's a specific reason, he doesn't use a shallow depth of field very often, which nowadays, it's the Zack Snyder thing where everybody, seems to want to use a shallow depth of field as much as they can. Blurry background, bokeh in the background, all of that. But Spielberg has everything in focus in most of his scenes. And so that requires that you have your set, set up the way that that works and that you need. But it also means that there's a lot of different things that can be happening in the background of the shots that contribute to what's happening in the foreground. So I'm not sure who the cinematographer was for this, but they were great. I'll look it up.
Since we're getting into cast and crew, I think we would be remiss if we didn't compliment Master John Williams and his tremendous score.
Well, yeah.
The iconic music for this movie. Yeah.
I did know about that even before watching but of course, John Williams, he's the master of, especially when he's with Steven Spielberg. It's like he just really knows how to bring out the story with everything that he presents. And
Douglas Slocombe is director of photography.
He
Yeah.
was the cinematographer. There was one thing that my friend and I yesterday or the other day when we were watching this again was mentioning about the whole shadows, how you see a lot of Indiana Jones in shadows for certain
Yeah.
moments, and
Right. Yep. Yeah.
like when he first meets Marion for the
Yep.
however many years they'd been away, and you just see his shadow behind him. Or there
Yep.
was another sequence where he's in the front of you, and he's just walking behind I think the sun is setting, and you just see the outline of Indiana Jones walking. That seems to be
Oh, it's
prevalent throughout.
when they found the location of the Well of Souls. There's a
Yes.
sunset that he's walking up, and he's putting on his hat or jacket or something, like changing his clothes or something. But yeah, very iconic shot.
Yeah, and Slocum actually did all three of the original three movies.
And then he stopped because there was no more
After
Indiana
that,
Jones
right?
films left to do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one question I had, because this came up with my friend and I. This was in regards to the suspension of disbelief and the what's real and what's reality looking and what is sort of fantastical. Where do you fall in that respect for this film? Because for me, it's just an enjoyable adventure film. There's no really, it's not like, oh, Indiana Jones would have been cut to ribbons if he had been pulled so long on that truck, or um, with all the snakes around it, not one of them got bitten. Like I'm always curious how people feel in with these types of films.
I think that the first scene of this movie sets up the tone of it pretty well, and so I think it comes across as you know. It's funny you say that, because I did start watching The Temple of Doom after I watched this. I only made it through like half of it, and then I had to go. But there's a scene that does go beyond the realm of all possibility, and that's at the very beginning. Indy and the female character played by Kate Capshaw, and the short round sidekick, they are in a plane, and the pilots have been paid off by this Japanese, I believe, or no, it was in Shanghai, so it must have been a Chinese gangster, and they parachute out while the other three are sleeping, and so they wake up and they see that there's nobody there, and they have no fuel. And so they get on this raft, an inflatable raft, and jump out of the plane in the inflatable raft. Now that stunt, that one I was like, okay, all right. But but it feels like the stunts in this movie and the action sequences, the set pieces, are in keeping with the reality of this movie being a hero adventure, and though far-fetched that he would survive all this stuff and still have the energy to keep going and keep fighting, it doesn't come off as unbelievable for some reason, and it seems to work perfectly. That's how I look at it. I don't look at, I mean, there are a few things that I'm like, okay, all right, but it's you're having so much fun watching it. Spielberg doesn't let you worry about that stuff in this movie.
Exactly.
You're having a blast watching it, and so you just don't care. You want to see him get out of these things.
I agree wholeheartedly. The only thing that I have to suspend my disbelief on is how terrible of a shot the entire Jovitos tribe is at the beginning. I mean, Indiana's probably only 20 yards ahead of him, and not one of them can peg him with a blow dart, a spear, or a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just like, they shoot like stormtroopers. That's how terrible they are. And for the longest time, I thought that the pilot's name was Chuck. And then I found out it's Jock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you to the internet. But yeah, it's not like I was a kid who was going to stick around and watch the credits to find out what the pilot's name was. In a callback to what you were talking about earlier about the cinematographer and the shadows in this film, because like I said, I have it on just to my left. There's the scene, where they've discovered the Ark in the Well of Souls. I think that's where it is. And there's a scene with him and Sala carrying it from its original place to where the opening is, right? And they were going to crate it up and haul it out of there. And that whole transportation scene is just shadows. It's Indy and Sala and the Ark, but you don't see them carrying it or even touching it. You just see a shadow moving along the walls of this tomb. And then all of a sudden it gets dropped down, and then you see all this great detail with the angels on the lid, and it's just a spectacular shot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, what I loved about this era of Spielberg was that he let you have your cake and eat it too. He gave you there was no trickery at the end where they didn't reveal what happened. There was no secret thing. He lets you, in all of these movies from his early career, he lets you go all the way with the story. And that was new, I feel, at that time. That was something I hadn't seen before. In Jaws, they don't just, kill the shark. They let you see him eating Quint. Like it is a violent, and that scene in Jaws where he takes Quint is still to this day a violent and shock. I don't know about shocking, but it is it's more violent than you're expecting. And Indiana Jones, we don't just get to see the Ark and then they put it in a box. They open the Ark and we get to see what happens after. And there's no anticlimactic thing. It is a huge deal that happens at the end of this movie with the Ark. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They go into the aliens come out of the spaceship. All of these movies, he lets you get what you want, but he does it in the most with the most artistry, of anybody at that time who'd been doing action. I still believe to this day, no one does action as well as him.
And I was just thinking about you talking about Close Encounters and Jaws, and when I was growing up, E.T. was the big Spielberg movie at the time, and I can't tell you how many times I saw that, but I also love the fact that Spielberg's not afraid to go to certain places, especially for young kids, where everything that happens with the agents that show up to kidnap E.T. and they're in the hospital sequences, and he shoots that with such you're so intrigued by the whole thing, but also terrified about what's going to happen,
right?
And he's not afraid to go there with any of his, and then of course his magnum opus of Schindler's List is something that he hadn't really done previously in terms of entertainment. And I like how most of his films are quite different in some respect. They have the Spielberg touch, but they're not the same story over and over and over again.
Right.
And that goes back to his loving of film, I think, and wanting to give the audience exactly what they want and enjoy themselves rather than have to really think about everything and but still give enough poignancy and moments of suspense, care, especially when you get to know Marion and watch her arc from beginning to end and how smart she is, especially when she's with how do you say his name, Belloq, Jones's adversary,
nemesis.
Yeah, I agree. Karen Allen is fantastic in this too. We'd be remiss not to mention the fact that she's a great. I love her character. She's fun. She's smart, and there's a little bit of damsel in distress that Indy, kind of thing. But she, I feel she's also a good fighter herself. She was an interesting female character.
Yeah, she's not Pauline just being tied to the tracks and help.
Yeah.
Well, it's established on her introduction. I mean, she wins a drinking contest in Nepal, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
That's respectful.
Yeah.
And that comes back around with her and Belloq, who's going to drink who under the table so she can escape in her poor woman in her dress and high heels having to run around the
Yeah.
the sand.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I have vowed that if I ever have to apply for a new license plate, it's going to say 9906753, because that's the top secret Army Intel stencil that they put on the box for the Ark of the Covenant. So that's the item number.
There you go.
Is that at the very end when the government U.S. government has taken it?
When the top men have taken it away and they go to file it, they're spray painting a stencil on the side of the box, and it says "Top Secret Army Intel 9906753. Do not open."
And then it just disappears in the realm of all the other boxes.
Right.
Yeah. I was saying how the irony, the fact that the Nazis wanted this for superpower and they give it to the Fuhrer to do it, and then it gets back to the States, and rather than letting the people who understand what the Covenant is and the Ark is actually do some research on it, like, no, we'll take care of it. The U.S. government will take care of it. No, don't worry about it. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Who would have thought they would have given it to the Vatican?
I know, right?
Exactly.
If anybody's staked a claim to that thing, it should be the Pope.
Yeah. Or, well,
absolutely,
it is Old Testament, so maybe
maybe it's true.
A Jewish temple or something like that.
Yeah, something. It's just not the government.
Yeah.
We'll lose it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get shuffled in with a bunch of paperwork, and where do we put that thing? 300 years from now, some janitor or some clumsy carpenter is going to find it on accident, open it up.
Yeah.
A sequel.
Yeah. Well, that begs an interesting question. I never want to see this happen, but if it had to be, who would you recast as Indiana Jones?
I mean, I'm assuming it would be somebody current, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can't pick somebody who hasn't been born yet.
Right. No, I meant like I meant just in general, like you're not thinking of just actors of all time, but like right now, if they remade who would a current actor be? I've heard Chris Pratt mentioned, and
I've heard the same thing.
He wouldn't be bad. He would. It's hard because Harrison Ford had this perfect combination of sort of swashbuckling swagger, comedic side, and self-effacing side, but then also very serious and tough side as well, and skillful side. So it would have to be somebody who got both the comedy and the seriousness side. And I would say Chris Pratt would be pretty good. He also, I don't know how old Harrison Ford was when he made this movie, but he certainly, I don't think he was a youngster when he made it. He was at least in his 30s. So
realm of consideration. Again, I don't want this to happen. I'm just, gun to my head. If somebody said you got to recast it today, there's three then. But I'd probably go with
Bradley
Chris Pratt.
Cooper. He might be a little old now for it, I guess, but yeah, he would be good. That's a tough one.
I wouldn't want to be the casting director for it, that's for sure.
No,
you're going to lose your job.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, and it would have been interesting to see the original idea for the character was Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
So it would have been
screen tests of him doing that.
Yeah, he had a Harrison Ford like quality to him. I think he would have been pretty good. I think in terms of it's hard to picture anybody but Harrison Ford, but I think he would have captured both that seriousness and that comedic side as well. But they wouldn't let it, like Magnum PI wouldn't let him out of his contract to do it. Insane.
Yeah, and it's not like that. Tom Selleck didn't have a career after that, so.
Well, yeah, he had a good career, but being Indiana Jones would be, I'm sure it has to gnaw at him even now.
It's hard to say, like, if my opinion of the movie would have changed, because there's so many things that are the same. The rest of the cast is identical. The director is identical. The score is identical. All this other thing, and you're just replacing one main character with Tom Selleck. Yeah. I don't know. It's so hard to even picture that. I'd like to say, oh, there's no way I would have liked it.
What is your favorite scene in the movie?
Ooh.
If you can choose one.
I mean, for me, it's probably that opening sequence with the idol. I think it's that whole opening sequence there. I just think it sets everything up so well. The legend of this guy, and then the traps, and it sets up this world so beautifully that then we're able to buy anything after that, pretty much, you know. And so I would say that first scene is one that I still think of. I think when somebody mentions Indiana Jones, that's the scene, along with the faces melting, I suppose. But that's the scene that I often think of. And then it also, in terms of a non-action scene, I really like the interaction. It's short, but the interaction between Marion and Indy on the boat, where she's kissing his wounds. I think it's that little bit does a lot in terms of their relationship, and kind of letting the audience take a breath and feel that romance. And they did feel like there was a connection between the two of them.
Absolutely.
All right, I've landed on one. My favorite scene is the car chase, where he takes over the transport with the Ark of the Covenant, and there's the whole thing's fantastic. Even down to when he sees out of his side view mirror, there's a motorcycle with a sidecar approaching, and he's got this smirk look on his face where he knows, you know, I'm just going to move the jar of the wheel a little bit to the left. And then he kind of like chuckles in herself, you know, it's so cocky but worth it.
Yeah.
And then when he gets shot in the arm and still manages to, you know, overtake this Nazi and kick him out and rams the other car off the road, and then it's got the perfect ending because he pulls into that street bazaar or whatever, and they have a space to hide him. The Nazis can't. It's just such a wonderful adventure. Like just that. Like I could watch that scene over and over again. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
I'm sticking
the
to
pacing,
it.
The pacing is so good, and the build up.
Yeah,
it's just, as I think we said before, it's just like one after another. It just revs up, and then you get a funny moment where they get hidden behind the perfectly set up stall of patrons and workers, and they're like, "Where is he? Where is he?"
Yeah. Never really. I'm assuming Sala is responsible for that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I love his character.
Yeah.
His character's, you know, the comic relief, but he's also very smart and strategic and knows people.
Very underestimated.
Nazis don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to one of my favorite scenes, I think, is when they first find where the new location of where the Ark is actually situated, and they look inside, and it's where all the snakes are covering the floor, and he's like, you know, it looks dangerous. You go first.
You go first.
Yeah. You go first.
That and the when he's sitting there with Sala and Marion, and she's like, "What are you going to do?" And his response, and this sums up his character entirely, is just, "I don't know. I'm making this up as I go."
Yeah.
You know, it's a tremendous line.
Yep.
Yeah, that snake sequence, though, I'm already not a fan of snakes like Indiana Jones's character is, so I was squirming the entire time while I was watching it. And but I loved the suspenseful moments of that, especially when they start running out of gasoline and the fire, and the build up to him pushing the one statue over so they can escape. And just I love the fact that it started out kind of comedic and then goes into this very suspenseful moment of like, are they going to get out? And then she falls into the catacombs of, kind of reminiscent of Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Into Poltergeist.
Right. Yep.
But no, I really truly enjoyed, just from beginning to end of this whole film. I was very glad, and kicking myself for not had seen it once before, but I was also glad to just be able to see it in the theater too, because that enhanced the.
Was that the first time you saw it? Was that the New Beverly?
Yeah,
first time ever. That's fantastic.
Completely.
Yeah, that's great.
Have you seen Last Crusade and Temple of Doom? No,
but now that I've finished Raiders, I'm going to continue and watch the rest of the trilogy, so that way I can sort of make sure I have that checked off my list, so I won't be like, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one yet.
Keep in mind chronologically, the Temple of Doom takes place prior to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, it's a prequel. Yeah.
That's good to know.
I'm not sure why that was important for them to
I'm
make
not
it a
either,
prequel.
but
It doesn't
just,
seem
every
to
time it gets brought
matter,
up, somebody
but-
says, "Oh, this was first."
Yeah. Yeah, if you're
You
going to
know,
watch them chronologically, yeah.
Yeah. When I had kids growing up and it was time to introduce them to Star Wars, they saw them in the order that I saw them.
Yeah.
So it was 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, 3, and so.
Yep.
And they turned out okay.
Because you're always like, the first trilogy, the original trilogy is the best
Right.
trilogy.
Yeah. Yes.
It will always be the best trilogy.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be hurting at all if you watch it Raiders and then Temple of Doom and then Last Crusade.
Yeah, no. There's no reason why they would be in a different, why the Temple of Doom would have been before Raiders. I can't figure out why, but it actually kind of raises questions about where's poor Short Round during Raiders of the Lost Ark, He just leaves these people behind. Yeah.
And the girl, the woman, what happened to her?
Yeah, what happened to her? They were at the end. They were like in love, and it looked like they were gonna have a big happy family with Short Round and everything. Which, I mean, you don't know what we're talking about yet, but yeah, and then of course when you realize, oh, he just dumps them at some point, obviously, and
But I guess she's just a rebound because he would have been with Marion first.
Yeah, and then her
when
and then
she was
Marion
in her
again.
childhood. Yeah.
When she was just a child.
Yeah.
We really discussed quite a lot with this. I really enjoyed it, especially hearing
Yeah, me
your
too.
tidbits of it. And I think, as I said, now that I've started with this one, I'm going to continue and watch the rest of it, so that way I can at least have like a beginning story to the end of the story.
Yeah, excellent. That's great. And of course, we're looking forward to having you on Cinescare too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I really, for those out there listening, find Cinescare Podcast. It's quite a fun, eclectic amount of movies, different movies from new to old, and everyone has a great opinions, and it's very funny. And it's definitely check it out. It's a fun. I'm looking forward to some of these upcoming ones.
Actually, as a teaser, we had been doing the show for 5 years now, and not once did we ever think about pairing a beverage with our show.
Yeah.
Until now, I've been told there will be an alcoholic beverage attached to one of our upcoming releases.
We're going to have a Malort episode, which if you are from the Chicago area, you will know what that is. It's a liqueur, I guess is what they call it, right? And it has a very distinct taste, as we say.
And if you are aware of what Malort is, you will ask, what is wrong with these guys who are willingly going to be drinking it while they're recording a podcast?
Yeah. And Catherine she sent us a text yesterday. She bought her bottle of Malort. It's not easy to find here in the LA area. You've got to go to Total Wine and Liquor. So I know there's one, I think it's in Northridge. So I'm going to pop up there. It's not far from where I work. So I'm going to pop up there and grab one at some point before we record. But yeah, we'll be doing shots of Malort, but it's not paired with a movie. That's the thing, is Mark is putting together
we're just raging alcoholics.
Yeah. We're gonna have Vinny DeSanti on the show, and then Mark's gonna have a big trivia game. So that's what we have planned for.
And we encourage our listeners to drink along with us while listening, as long as they're not driving. So,
but it's got to be Malort.
Yes.
I just want to thank you both for joining me here on Real Beans, and hopefully I can have you back again maybe if I watch Temple of Doom and the other one, we can have a trilogy of this episode.
Yeah.
Certainly, minimally Last Crusade, because that's
Last Crusade for sure.
Yeah.
And Joe and I have bonded over that for about 30 years. Talking about that movie and doing our Sean Connery imitations, and so we would love to come back and be a part of your especially Last Crusade talk.
Yeah.
Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon and listening to you on Cinescare.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more film and coffee lovers find the show. You can catch up on all our previous episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to check out realbeans.com for show notes, pairing details, and more. If you'd like to support Real Beans and help keep the show going, head over to realbeans.com/support. And hey, if you've got a film or coffee recommendation you think would make a great pairing, drop us a message on Instagram at @real_beans. I'd love to hear your suggestions. And so until next time, sip, watch, repeat.